And by way of introduction, I'll say that the plan for next week is to go back. So that today's the Middle East, and the plan for next week is to go back to the Far East and cover the excursions Len did into North Korea and the Vladivostok Bay. Stories that are very interesting as well. But today we start out in Sinop, Turkey, right, Len?
That's right. Sinop was my home base for 365 days. The Navy, an assignment to Sinop was 90 days, was considered a hardship tour, and they got 180 days leave. Unfortunately for the Army, it was, oh, you're back, we'll feed you again. It was not a nice place. Anyway, I was in Sinop, and Sinop had some fairly sophisticated receivers. So we were basically looking at the satellites, which was a brand new game at that time. And so we had a big 40-foot dish, and we had some log periodic arrays and other stuff. And so it was basically we were looking at satellites, and we were in high-speed communication with Big Daddy, who is the head of stuff at Fort Meade, Maryland, the National Security Agency. And then we had about, so for this whole operation, we had a 2-month lead time, and we'd already determined where to put the transmitters and gather the Canadian identification that was necessary. And we ordered the 2 lorries that were coming over from the UK. And so I was going to be driving into the Sinai Desert in 2 lorries. And we were dressed as British truck drivers, which, by the way, that at that time anyway, that was the way everything got delivered up and down through the Middle East. The only people the border guards did not mess with were the British lorry drivers, because that's where everything came from. So, oh, Sonia, you're okay. Okay, anyway, so we got these 2 British lorries, and they were outfitted. We were outfitted as truck drivers, and the objective of this whole exercise was to see if our toys could be the new Russian toys. And Nasser had purchased, I think it was about 24, maybe 30 Russian tanks, T-34, I believe. And all we were trying to do is find out, can we beat can we set up procedures so that we can always have a pretty good chance of beating them, which is what we were interested in doing. So to start the process, there were going to be 5 of us going. And to start off, we rode down to Lebanon. So we went from Synop, Turkey to Beruit, Lebanon, and it took a little over 24 hours. And so we stayed in the trucks at night, and once we got to Lebanon, we did some sightseeing, and it was a gorgeous city. It reminded me very much of Barcelona, Spain, and had a beautiful, beautiful promenade. And it was just really, really nice. And so from Lebanon, we basically tried to get a little bit of rest, and then we pushed on. We went through Lebanon into Israel. We went through Israel late at night and got into the Sinai Peninsula on an international lorry driver's license, which is all anybody was carrying. So we were in good shape. And that made us invisible. Nobody paid any attention to us. We had these two lorries. You can see the type of machines there in the background. The only thing we did not want the Israelis to examine the contents of the cargo very carefully, because there was a lot of electronic equipment. So basically, when the Israeli Self-Defense Force tried to inspect our cargo, we just drove on. And there was a huge long line of trucks, and they knew things were going to be mucked up pretty soon, so they didn't chase after us. So we arrived in Palestine and Egypt in the Sinai, basically. So we were trying to keep our heads down and get to where we needed. Anyway, on the second day, we pulled off the road and set up operations at a predefined site. And this was very careful, because what we were going to try to do was we were going to try to move north so that the tanks would go not to where they thought they were going, but someplace else. So they'd run out of fuel. And then we went ahead and we set up our generators and our transmitters and such, and we dug Vox holes underneath the trucks for us to hide in. And we were fairly careful about we're trying to be careful so that we did not want to draw attention to us, and we did not want to draw attention to any of the electronic signatures that a careful operator would have noticed had they been working in that area. So and the aim was, of course, to get the Russian tanks to run out of fuel. So the plan on the Egyptian side was they just wanted to drive the damn tanks across the Sinai into Israel. And anyone watching could see what was happening. Massoud was watching the U.S. Liberty, which is a Navy ship, naval intelligence ship, was watching, and the Liberty was one of about 1,000 boats in or around the entrance to the Suez Canal. So it was a very busy area. And then on June 5th, after we got things going in the Sinai, we watched as 25. We didn't see the tanks, but electronically we knew that the tanks were moving across the Suez Canal. So we had no active tracking, and the info came as who's actually doing what, came from the Liberty, which was off the Suez Canal. It was actually about 13 miles off the coast. However, the idea was that the tanks would run out of fuel, and that was in fact what happened. I think only 2 or 3 of their tanks actually made it into Gaza. So we were in pretty good shape. So we started moving north. Okay, so we were moving north, and we had binoculars to watch from the hills to see if the tanks were able to get to the refueling depot. At the same time, we heard planes overhead, but they were not our problem, we thought. We focused on our mission, which was making sure that they ran out of fuel. When the Egyptians found the tanks, they could see that the transmitter did not have north in the proper position, and they started looking around for us. They were not happy. We were going to abandon the electronics, turn off the transmitters when we were attacked, and what happened was after the 3rd day of the attack and the war, we went ahead and did the appropriate thing for people who didn't even have any bullets. We went underneath our trucks and hoped they'd leave us alone, which they didn't. They figured out someone was messing with them, and the Egyptians took and blew up one of the trucks. The Liberty was supposed to be our exit vehicle anyway, so we weren't too concerned about that. But when they blew up the truck, they also used some artillery rounds, and they made more than a modest mess of the truck, one of the trucks. Then the Israelis came along, and they said, they're not supposed to be here. So they took and they blew up, took an artillery round, and they blew up our truck. So here I was underneath in a foxhole, and 2 burning trucks on top of us. And so we were not happy about what was going on. And so I went ahead and we changed clothes. We're no longer British lorry drivers. We were in Israeli field uniforms, and hiding underneath the trucks. About 6 hours later, an Israeli military truck came by going to the Golan Heights. We flagged it down. My buddy, who actually spoke some of the spoke the Israeli language, did the talking, and the Israeli army had Canadian and American Jews, so they were used to soldiers who didn't know the language. We stopped for water, food, and gas at the military outpost. We arrived at a forward observation post. This was up in the Golan Heights, about 3.5 days in, and one of the they directed us to one of the observation posts, and we blended in fairly well. And the commanding officers told us to do something. We did it. The Syrians and Jordanians were a couple hundred yards away, and when they came across the border at us, we defended our positions as Israeli soldiers did for 3 nights. It was done. It was we did close fighting with rifles, and I personally didn't like to stick my head out of the hole at all. Let's see. On June 10th, peace was declared. So we traveled with a bunch of other guys to the Tel Aviv military base. The Israelis were very, very happy. We wandered off and got into civilian clothes, hitchhiked back to the Turkish base in Izmir, across the border with American passports. And we called Sinop, my home base. And I told them that the boat you sent didn't make it. So I was announcing that the Liberty did not pick us up. And so basically all I did was tried to get back up to Sinop, get some food on the way, get some water, and smoked lots of cigarettes, and wrote up the results of the operation, and then went back to spying on the Russians, that was what the whole idea was. Well, the whole idea was to find out whether our toys could beat their toys. And that was fairly clear because we made it, although we were a little bit bloodied. So that was what happened. And on June 8th, 1967, just a little bit about the Liberty. It was the Liberty was sailing 13 nautical miles off the coast of Arish, which is just outside of Egyptian territorial water, and was attacked by the Israelis, jets and torpedo boats, nearly sinking the ship, killing 34 sailors and wounding 171. Israel said the attack was a case of mistaken identity, and the ship had been misidentified as the Egyptian vessel something. Basically, which was not true. The Israelis apologized. This is a bunch of malarkey there. We knew that they knew it was an American ship because we could hear them. And it was, anyway, due to diplomatic stuff, the investigation, the United States accepted the explanation that the incident was friendly fire and issue was closed by the exchange of diplomatic notes in 1987. So it took quite a bit of time. There was a lot of men lost, and we haven't had a whole lot of military alignment with the Israelis since. And that was about it. We did get back to Synop, and I went to the club and drank a whole bunch, since alcohol is not permitted in Egypt, or well, it's not permitted in Egypt, or not a good idea. And anyway, we had a good time. we got back and we had a good time. We did not have a good time on this particular operation, but it was, I'm glad we were able to do it. And we did demonstrate that we could beat the T-34s. I think it was the T-34 tank. And two of us got back. So that was pretty much what happened on this particular thing. And it was really quite important. It was quite important that we find out, because we didn't know anything. We didn't have much information about the T-34 tank. And the Egyptians had about 40 of the tanks, actually. And I think they may have bought some more, although they were not real happy with them because they consumed more fuel than they had allocated. Maybe partially as a result of our efforts. So are there any questions?
So Len, you mentioned Beirut being so beautiful. Did you want to say something about the city?
Oh, yes. Okay, Beirut, when I first got there, it reminded me a lot of the boulevard in Barcelona. It was just beautiful tree lines and lovely flower beds, and you could go down to the water, and you could, if you had money, you could rent somebody to get somebody to haul you on water skiing, and it was just absolutely gorgeous.
And when you came back?
When I came back, it looked like Dresden during World War II. It was just absolutely bombed to nothing. The Assad, the president of Syria, had gone in and he'd had absolute free reign, and he just destroyed everything he could in Lebanon. And particularly it was not nice at all. And it was completely unnecessary. And I just said, nah.
Leonard, what year was that when Assad did that?
67.
Oh,
So on his return trip.
oh, I see. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Assad had it. There's some religious thing. The Syrians are different from the Lebanese.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And so he felt justified in destroying the homes and the beautiful boulevards and everything, and the shops, and it's pretty awful. So that was another thing that helped form my opinion.
So what do you think the reason was for the Israelis attacking the Liberty?
This is our war.
Oh, okay.
It's a whole bunch of macho man stuff.
Yeah.
And and
Did they think maybe the US wasn't on their side? Because when I was looking at some of this stuff, it looked like the British may have been pretty much aligned with Egypt. I mean, was it unclear to them? I mean, you weren't really there to support Israel. You were just there to see what you could learn about the Russian tanks.
absolutely, yeah. We knew that the Egyptian armored personnel had been through a year of advanced training in Russia. So they had learned the newest techniques for using the Russian instruments or the Russian equipment. And I don't know. Yeah, they may have mistaken us for British. Well, yeah, they might have.
Well, I don't mean mistaken you for it, but maybe they thought that the United States was on the side of Egypt.
Well,
I have no idea what the politics really were at that time.
well, the politics did not get any better after they did the Liberty.
Yeah, geez.
After, I mean, this is a major ship. It was, about I don't know how big those ships are, but they were pretty, they enough for 200 men. And so it was a real mess.
Yeah.
And it has cost the Israelis. We no longer have joint operations. After that, we did not have any joint operations for at least 10 years. Because too many active duty military had lost friends on the Liberty. So, any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. Do you think had the various armies identified the location of your lorries from sight, or was it actually from the signals that came out of the trucks? Do you
From
know?
the signals.
Oh, okay.
I was fairly good at hiding the damn trucks.
Yeah. Oh,
I figured, a bunch of rocks are much better to hide behind than canvas on the back of a truck.
mhm.
And I did not want to have somebody shooting at me without anything between me and them either.
Sure.
So I was not interested in that. So anyway, this was
How did you fuel? What did you do for logistics, for supplies? And how big was your group when you started out?
five men went in, 2 men came out.
Okay.
And we had enough water and sea rations to go for, about a week. But they got blown up anyway, so
Right.
I didn't have to eat too many sea rations.
Like in disguise, were you given any training on, how to be a British lorry driver, or what to say? Or I don't know,
I knew how to drive the truck.
Okay, you didn't have to take
And the language I was speaking with a little bit of, boot. That's about the only thing you had to say.
Sure. Okay.
And I had a British passport,
Okay.
and I also had a Canadian passport, and I did not have an American passport. But when I got back and was going into Turkey, I was met by one of the guys from the embassy, and he replaced my passport.
Okay.
So,
That was
anyway,
in Lebanon or Turkey?
what? This was,
The embassy.
I was going from Lebanon into Turkey.
Okay.
And I definitely wanted to get back into Turkey because that's where my home base was.
Right.
And, that's what we did.
How did that diplomat know you were coming?
He was told.
Okay.
So somebody had their eyes on you?
No, when we got to the border, I said, diplomat. And they got the embassy immediately.
Okay.
And they always do that. That's how, you know, one person at each border crossing is supposed to recognize the fact that if you say, I want to be brought in through diplomatic channels, they would do it.
I see. Okay.
So,
And they were glad to see you? Or they didn't care?
uh, you know, they
At
didn't
the
care.
border of Lebanon, they didn't care.
What- they were very anxious to have me write up the results of the test.
Mhm.
That was, and I was able to give them some suggestions on how to improve the control of their compass. But aside from that, I really, you know, they were happy, and I discovered a couple. I got enough sense that there were some fairly glaring holes with the T-34, and we were able to. I think they were able to change some of the stuff that they were looking at with the T-34, so that they could would not be hampered by them. The T-34, by the way, had really strong armor,
Mm.
and it was just a really strong tank.
Where else was it being used?
Every place that the Russians were well, they were selling. They sold the T-34. I think they sold it several places in the Middle East. But you know, it's the T-34 was just one. The Russians had a really good hardware. The problem was their electronics were weak, and their training was not good because they had lousy electronics.
Mhm.
I mean, a guy like me could beat them electronically, then not very good.
Did you encounter them again and get to kind of test or improve your approach to messing with their navigation system?
No,
Okay.
no, Cordy, I was not going to make a career
Yeah.
out of messing with Russian tanks
Okay.
or any of that sort of stuff. You know, I go in, do it once, get out.
Mhm.
That was, and nobody expected me to,
Mhm.
I don't think.
No.
So Leonard, you're saying that you were at the Golan Heights when Israel took it over?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was
Fighting as an Israeli officer.
what?
That's amazing. I mean, that's quite an historic.
Anybody with a rifle can, you know,
Yeah,
if the color of your uniform is about right and you've got a rifle and they're happy to have you.
yeah. But they're still scrapping over it. Iran keeps,
But they're always going to
Syria.
scrap. This is the thing that I learned about the Middle East is it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
None of it makes any sense
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
A lot about tribal warfare.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's why the Syrians went and destroyed Lebanon, Beirut. Or
Yeah.
they destroyed Beirut for tribal reasons. And it's just stupid. It's almost as stupid as the people shelling Dubrovnik after the '92 war. They had some extra artillery shells. We thought we'd just go ahead and blow up the city.
Yeah.
So anyway, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not a real fan of warfare, by the way.
Okay,
Anything? Sorry.
glad everybody could come.
Well, interesting, interesting. Thank you, Nancy. And
Yeah, thank you for the story, for telling it.
So,
I have one more question, though. I was looking up on my phone where Sinop,
Sure.
Turkey is. It's on the northern coast on the Black Sea. Was that because Russia was up there at the other end of the Black Sea then?
On the other side, okay, well, I was in Sinop, and Sinop is, okay, the Black Sea is shaped like a kidney bean.
Yep.
Mhm.
So it's like a bent sausage with the inner part. And there was a place we had a very, very special antenna array that we had built in Sinop, and it allowed us to look at all three of the Russian spaceports.
Wow.
The Russians were launching from Kapustin Yar and Plesetsk and Teryatam, all three.
Mhm.
And so we could actually see exactly what was going on at all three of those spaceports.
Wow.
And so that's what we did.
Mhm. All right, is that still a place? I mean, is that still operational there, or is that secret?
Mary, I'm not going to go back there to find out.
Oh,
If it's all right with you, I'd just as soon not.
we can do a lot more from space these days. So
It was kind of a silly. We used at least when I was there, Synop was used as a forward electronic presence. Now, I think they could do a better job putting up satellites and listening for stuff, but I'm no longer in that business.
well, it ain't 1967 anymore.
50 years ago, I'm not so young, and I don't duck as fast. I'd rather not have to duck.
Exactly. We'll see. Bets came on. Hi, Bets.
Hi. A little problem with the computer.
we got a
Nope.
recording, you can catch
And
up.
Harker got out of his car, so we no longer had to worry about him driving and.
But I love watching his little journey through wherever he is. The peas and I bet.
Hi.
Where are Rod and Jill?
They're still in, well, I don't know exactly, Harker may know.
They're still in the yard, it appears.
Oh,
They had the refrigerator repairman, the Sub-Zero guy was coming today or yesterday, so.
Oh, my
They were
God.
drinking warm beer.
Well, that's very British.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rod was shown with a cup of tea.
oh, God. Rodney with tea?
Rodney with tea.
No, that's the, if they were in Cambridge, I know a couple good places they could go and get some fairly nice ale, but
They might do that also.
I'm sure they will.
Leonard, can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Like during like this session, like how long did you go with not contacting your family back in Seattle? Or was that
3-4 months.
3 or 4 months? Were you able to tell them anything at that time, or did they have any idea? No.
No, Pop was very upset about that. He said
Oh,
I was a bad boy,
for not
writing letters.
Ah, oh, but you couldn't explain yourself, really.
When
Huh.
when was all of this declassified?
Well, it's, as with all classification, it goes down by about 1 grade every 5 years.
The announcement about the Liberty getting blown up, I remember hearing that on the radio. It was like 5 years ago. It was not that long ago. And it just came out of the blue. Oh, there was the ship that the Israelis shot down, and it stayed on the news for about a day and then, disappeared because nobody had anything else to say about it. But I, of course, I'm going, that was Leonard's ship. I mean, that was the one that was supposed to pick him up.
That was the one I was supposed to fly. I was supposed to go home on. It was going to drop me off in Istanbul.
Well, actually, it's a good thing it didn't pick you up, because
That's right.
Yeah.
it'd have been
Yeah.
the bottom of the
It might
sea.
well have had a problem,
Mhm.
but it's risky business, risky stuff, and I'm glad I survived, and don't recommend it as a way of I just don't recommend it. Although you can design weapon systems that don't use bullets. And that's a more reasonable way of doing stuff, which was what I was talking about with B-52.
Mhm.
I was trying to make it a little bit nicer. So let's see, Nancy,
Yes,
now we're going to be doing this again in 2 weeks.
we talked about doing it next week. Is that too soon?
What's our next installment?
Well, the next installment's the Kamchatka.
Right.
Well,
So if you
got
want
no-
2 weeks to get ready, you need to talk to Cordy and David and see how their calendars are, because we didn't, or that may even actually be 4th of July weekend. I'm not sure if that matters.
Yeah, I think it is, but
Oh,
no.
yeah. Yeah.
The 2nd of July, is that for Pacific time instead of this next Friday?
Well, while the date of the 4th exists in China, the celebration probably doesn't.
Oh, no, yeah, so it's a regular weekend for us.
How about David?
2 weeks is fine.
Okay, so we'll
Friday the
skip.
2nd.
Yeah, okay, we'll skip next week and do the 2nd then.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Well, thanks all.
Thank you all for coming, and
Nice to see you.
good to
Thank
see you
you,
too,
everyone.
Chuck.
Yes.
Say bye.
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 Hi, thanks, Leonard. So
Yeah.
interesting.
That's
Bye
it.
now.
The baby.
Bye, everybody.